It'll say, okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So tonight we have the second part of our youth conversations that follows last week's panel. And our title for tonight is the Cliche of Youth Empowerment. Before we begin discussing the panel, I guess I can let everyone do a quick introduction of themselves. So Bassel, if you want to start, you can just say your name, your age, a little bit about yourself, and just give everyone a little quick summary of who you are.
All right, cool. I'm Bassel. I'm 17 years old, and I guess I try to be an active youth member at Maryam Masjid. So yeah, that's me.
Okay,
I can
go ahead.
Oh, sure, yeah, I can go. My name is Hena. I am 28, so I'm kind of like an older youth member, but my background is in engineering. I work in oil and gas, and I'm a pretty frequent attendee at Maryam Masjid.
Okay, Aliyan.
This is Aliyan. I'm also 17. I just graduated high school, and I do a lot of volunteer work with Bassel at Maryam Masjid.
And last but not least, Manal.
My name is Manal. I'm 18, and I have just recently started being more regular at the masjid.
And then the other host, Shayan.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Sean Sajid. I'm 20. I go to UH, and I do stuff with the masjid.
All right, awesome. So like I mentioned before, our title is the Cliche of Youth Empowerment, and what we really want to dive into that is we really want to touch on authenticity and why it's important to eliminate cliche when it comes to youth, and what it means for something to be cliche is something that's overused, something that's overdone, something that's expected, and how can we change that narrative that follows youth empowerment and how it's become a cliche within our society. So Shayan, if you don't want to add anything, I think we can kick off with the questions.
I think we're good to go. We can just jump into it.
Awesome. So, well, I guess the first thing that we wanted to ask are, what are norms in society that you guys feel, the panelists feel, push youth away from becoming empowered? And I guess we can start off with Aliyan, any thoughts that you have in mind for this question.
Yes, I feel like since we are like in high school, or from when I was in high school, it's like it can be very toxic at times, as in very judgmental. So when you have a bunch of people just judging each other, it kind of devalues wanting to be a leader, because it's like if I do one bad thing, I'm like cancel culture. It's that kind of thing that goes on, and it's like instead of tearing each other down, I feel like we build each other up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm like, yeah. But that's all I have to say on that right now.
And I can kind of touch on that too. And this just doesn't necessarily apply to youth. Of course, this is for anyone. I feel like a lot of the pushing away from empowerment stems from just kind of like Aliyan said, fear of being judged, fear of rejection, not essentially being good enough. And I can kind of highlight one of, I guess, my moment of weaknesses. Even when I was joining this panel, of course, this is an opportunity to empower and be empowered. And as I was getting to learn kind of the other panelists, I was like, I think I'm probably the most least active at Maryam Masjid. And I'm like, am I a good fit? And I guess the answer to that is there really isn't an answer. And, I do have some ideas, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to be involved. And it's good to be the change that you want to see. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that point.
Another thing I noticed is the whole stigma around returning back to the masjid once you graduate high school and move on to college, because like we're more active during middle school and like early high school, but then after that there's like you kind of drift away, and then there's like this kind of taboo thing about coming back and being welcomed back into the masjid. So I think that's also something else.
I think also to add on, I feel like a lot of youth, or like in like high school perspective, I think a lot of youth actually like doubt their own capabilities. So they just sometimes just like Sister Manal said, sometimes they just kind of leave, and then they like she said, they have like this stigma of not coming back. So I feel like a lot of youth do doubt their capabilities and kind of just step back a little.
Can I add on real quick?
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, so it's not really even only like just in coming to the masjid. Like from when I was in MSA, there were we had a lot of members, not a lot, but there were always those members that were just shy because they were afraid of just being judged, because some people were just like that. And I don't want to say it's normal that people judge each other, but unfortunately it is. But with some people, it messes with them on just not wanting to step up in anything, like in things like MSA, because there are a lot of people that are or could be way like amazing leaders, but they're just scared by what people are gonna think of them if they mess up.
Yeah, and that's why opportunities like this, it's good to, I guess, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because it only helps you in the long run, not only in the masjid, but like professionally when you guys grow up as well, you'll see that. Just wanted to add that on there.
No, definitely. And I think that's something that a lot of people can resonate with, whether they're active members or whether they've been to the masjid and came back or anything of that sort. There's definitely that like cliche that if you're going to be involved or if there's something that you have to do in the society, it has to be something like, because like the youth are young and they're more like, I guess, more like active and things like that. They can just pick up the chairs, put away the tables, do things like that. And there's no like real, I guess there's no real effort to empower youth in ways that let them shine as who they are as people, despite whether they come to the masjid once a week, once a year, whatever it may be. And those, like you guys said, definitely push people away, or makes it hard for people to come back comfortably.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think sometimes, a lot of times, I'm not even limiting this to the masjid, but in bigger organizations, there's sometimes like a false opportunity presented for the youth where it's like, oh, come in, we value you. We want you guys here. We want y'all to, we want to empower you guys. And then when you pull up, it's like, it's very different. It's like, actually, we just need some extra hands, go lift those chairs, go put up this banner. And it's like, what did you empower me to do? A workout? But yeah.
Okay, so from that, we want to touch on, so there are these norms that we mentioned that limit people or push people away. So what do you guys think, or how can youth themselves establish real and genuine initiatives for themselves in order to empower youth around them in the long run? Manal, if you want to touch on that. Or Hena, whoever wants to take it over.
No, you can go ahead, Manal.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, reading the question, that it said that initiatives need to be, the real and genuine. And I feel like for initiatives to be real, first of all, it needs to be something that the youth is, something that they deal with, daily life. And genuine, it needs to be something that they're passionate about. Because if you don't relate to something in the masjid, then, then there's no platform for the youth to speak on, and then therefore there is no initiative. So like in schools, we have clubs and like extracurriculars, that we relate to and we do outside of academic work. So that's why I feel like in the masjid, we should have something like affinity groups, something, that can, that youth can feel like they relate to and they're interested in, it's like a natural extension instead of like something that they're doing outside of their schedule. So yeah, that's something I feel like we can do.
Yeah, and just kind of to add on to that, I totally agree. That's kind of what I was going to say too. But we really need to just find out what their needs are, where they need support in. And I know a lot of you guys are in high school and college, but kind of thinking back to, I guess, areas that I would have loved support kind of through the masjid, I know there was a point where I was confused at what I wanted to do when I go into college. So maybe like a panel of people with different majors, or even like a panel of people who have interned in different industries, new hires that recently have graduated, just to make sure that we're kind of hitting people at all stages of youth. And then that can actually help that drive away that one stigma you guys were talking about, how there's that gap of those individuals from maybe college onwards that are not as involved. So we really just need to see what their needs are and just try to incorporate them in the masjid.
I mean, yeah, like I agree with what Manal and Hena were both saying, just kind of incorporating. And forgive me for if I'm gonna repeat this a lot because I know him, but it's just we literally have to build each other up because we are one body, one unit. Like if I got two broke legs, my whole body can't walk. You know what I'm saying? So that's how the ummah kind of works. Is if because what you do will affect the whole ummah. Like you kind of get what I'm trying to get at with it. But yeah.
And then I think to add on to like what Aliyan was saying about, you know, the unity and everything like that, I feel like, you know, like if the youth just kind of get out of their comfort zone and just kind of, you know, we also touched upon like, you know, being uncomfortable, like we should be comfortable and being uncomfortable and kind of, you know, communicate with other members, even like, and not even like Chance, and not even just limiting it to the masjid, but like even outside the masjid, if we just kind of keep that communication going and that, you know, like, hey, how are you doing? And then maybe the youth could even get tighter with other youth members.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
ties in.
You got it, my bad.
I think that ties in with what Manal mentioned earlier. It's like the main part of that is the real and genuine aspect of these initiatives, of these ideas. That's what brings youth closer. That's what establishes connection. That's what makes it a passionate and selfless sort of thing that you want to do that betters not only yourself, but betters people around you.
Yeah, so what I was
Yeah,
gonna say is
exactly.
like another big one is sometimes when you are, you know, trying to get involved somewhere, maybe an opportunity does present itself, but you need to make sure that like as an individual who knows the struggles of like all the false opportunities and like, you know, just being stuck in a position where, you know, you don't really have a voice. When you finally do get a voice, make sure you are inviting others, letting them know that, hey, this is an actual thing, right? Like you know, if I get somewhere in an organization, why am I not taking, you know, the other two youth that were struggling with me, right? Like, so we need to be very inviting because I mean, who would you what stranger would you like to invite you into like, you know, doing work? Would it be someone like your own age that you know, like might go to the same school as you, or like, you know, some older adult? You know, sometimes that also throws people off. Like a mix between bad experience and then just like not knowing a friendly face and they're just like, okay, yeah, that's whatever. But I think if people saw their own, you know, age like youth out there with smiling faces inviting people in, I think that'd be a big game changer as well.
Yeah, and that, so with this, this sort of ties in everything that we're discussing. It's this need for more authentic relationships, more genuine, real, raw connections between the youth. And authenticity really, I would say it's situational when it comes to different friendships and relationships, but really authenticity is something that is real, that makes you comfortable, and that makes you feel okay with yourself and okay with who you are. And there's also levels of respect. There's levels of support. It's, you want something more for your friend than you do for yourself. I guess when I think of an authentic relationship, I always think of like a parent to kid relationship, because I feel like there's nothing more real than that. I mean, the parent would want everything and more for their kid, despite the parent not having anything, or coming from nothing, maybe. But definitely, there's this huge stress to create those moments and create those connections, because, like you guys spoke, the norms in society tend to be sort of toxic, like Aliyan said, and ingenuine. They're not something that people do and love to do. And do you guys have anything you'd like to add about authenticity, about authentic relationships, an example of one, anything of that sort, if you guys would like to?
I just feel like we tend to trust opinions and stuff by our friends a bit more than we do about, adults and stuff like that. And that could be because of, age or generation gap or whatever. But I just feel like it is something a lot better to see our people our own age, take action about something, because it then encourages us more to take action ourselves.
For sure. I mean, I actually have an example of this, and it's kind of a funny one. But I remember, I think like 4 or 5 years ago, it was Ramadan, and I was at Maryam Masjid, and my friends were like, I never heard of this thing, and they were like telling me all about it. They were like, "Are you gonna be doing itikaf?" And I was like, "The who? What? Like, what are you talking about? I'm just fasting." And they go, "No, we're gonna be staying in the masjid for 10 nights, 10 days. It's gonna be fun." And they low key told me it was like a sleepover, and me not knowing any better. No, I wasn't 20 at the time. I was a lot younger. And I was like, yeah, sure. And they were my genuine friends. It was like 5 guys I've known for like a few years, and I'm still friends with them to this day. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I told my parents, and I was expecting them to say no, like they do for any other sleepover. But they were like, oh, mashallah, subhanallah, yes, do it. And I was like, what am I signing up for? But if like I'm not even gonna go into it. Like, alhamdulillah, it was amazing, and I love doing it. But like, if that was an uncle or someone saying yes, like come to the masjid, we're gonna stay all 24 hours for 10 days, I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm okay. I'm just gonna fast at home and come for Troy.
Yeah.
Like, so a friendly face and an actual friend, like someone literally that encouraging you to do something goes miles and miles, way beyond anything else. So and I don't want this to limit you guys, meaning if you want your friend to be involved with something that you're passionate about, that doesn't mean you can't invite people that aren't your friends. That just means go and make all the friends. Be the friendliest person and get everyone. That a true leader, a good leader, like is someone like who everyone wouldn't mind knowing, is friendly with everyone, wouldn't mind following. So I think that's a big thing.
Yeah. So I guess like Shayan mentioned i'tikaf, which is a huge thing I know during Ramadan, and I've heard a lot of stories of younger guys that went in there on their own and came out with like 10 new best friends, and that's really, really cool and heartwarming to hear. And I guess that leads me to our next question. How can Masajid better welcome new, active, or inactive youth members? And I think you guys touched on this a little bit earlier, how there's that stigma of inactive members. It's like once they come back, people kind of like, what are you doing here? Like, you haven't been here for a while. Why are you back? But how can Masajid make it nicer or make it easier to welcome those people that are active or inactive or just brand new? How can they go about doing that with those youth members?
Okay, well, I was personally looking at this as a two-step kind of thing. Well, first, in order to welcome new members, you need to invite them to the masjid first. And again, this relates back to, doing something that interests them, like socials, activities, stuff like that. And so like once they're invited, and the next step would be to keep them. And that is the proper welcome, which is, again, at the risk of repeating myself, the whole, no judgment, keeping stigma-free environment and stuff like that, so that they know that the masjid isn't for just one particular person or one particular group. It's a place that for everyone, the masjid embraces everyone that comes in. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we need to put out there for everyone that comes in.
Yeah, and then I think also like your culture, like your culture also plays a big role, because I feel like during the like even like in this world we have like cultural conflicts. So I think if that could kind of die down, then like a lot of even like teenagers, like high schoolers or I think even young adults, if that dies down, that they could freely come to the masjid and kind of not be, I don't want to say like, I guess, discriminated by their culture or other beliefs or
Okay, and I guess like you guys are all fairly active members at the masjid. So do you guys feel like everywhere you go within the masjid or within masajid in general that you always feel welcome wherever you are, being active members?
Could you say it one more time?
So you guys are all active, relatively active members at Masjid Maryam. So I guess from that vantage point, do you guys feel like you are welcome, not only in Maryam, but I guess as you travel and visit different masajid, do you also feel that same welcome atmosphere that you have at Maryam?
There's been times where it's felt off. I don't want to say not welcome, but it's as corny as this word is, the energy was off over there.
The vibes.
Yeah, the vibes felt off. There's been times where it's like that, and I'll be honest, recently it's felt like that. But then once I start to think more about it, look, I've been here my whole life, or majority of my life. I know where I can call home, and at the end of the day, like I got to stay more on the positive side about it. Because this is how I'm feeling right now. I might not be feeling like this in a week from now. You know, maybe it's just I'm off, or positivity is the main focus I'm trying to be on when it comes to
So actually, I agree with Aliyan there. Just real quick to add this, I think sometimes, especially going into new areas, whether it's like, you know, a new school or a new masjid that you haven't been to in a while, a lot of times it's funny because we're like, oh, no one was nice, no one was welcoming, but like we're walking in with an upset face. So like you said, maybe it's me, you know, thinking that. So like sometimes we need to also be out there. Are we welcoming to the people welcoming us? And to add to the original question on how we can better welcome, you know, people into the masjid, I mean, we could compare it to any other, you know, high school, college, club, or any new job, internship, or anything like that. I think a lot of them, like the first thing you do is like, first of all, it's very oriented to the target people, right? So you don't just straight in go into the rules and the work and, you know, anything like that. You start with like a social, or you start with something like a game night, or you start with icebreakers. So I think a lot of times if we were to do stuff like that, like very youth oriented events, I mean, before I was really, you know, anything volunteering in a masjid, I would always be pulling up for lock-ins, you know? Like a lock-in was an automatic, like I'm gonna go. Whether I was actually participating or just playing basketball outside was a different conversation. But when you have something youth oriented, you don't just say, hey, we're doing a program, there's this sheikh giving a lecture, come on, youth. You know, like that's not the most attractive to every single individual. But so I think if, a lot of times if masjids were to host these like very youth oriented events, like, you know, a video game tournament, a soccer tournament, a lock-in, you know, things like this, or maybe something like this, actually, honestly, like a youth-based program just run by the youth. I think those are very like welcoming and more interesting for the youth than just, hey, just be a part of whatever we're doing.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I definitely agree with that. And I think for me, it comes down to relatability. And I think Maryam Mazda does a really good job on this, but I know diversity inclusion is thrown around a lot, but it's so important to have, you know, different races, different genders, and even people at different levels of their faith involved, and just so you get that sense of relatability. And when you see someone who is more similar to you, you're obviously going to be more inclined to be involved and continue to be involved. But I think we did a really good job here. And, you know, although we didn't really try to get the 50-50 female male ratio, but, you know, it definitely gives out a good message.
Yeah, and like a cool thing that Masjid Maryam does, alhamdulillah, is they have a separate department for youth. So Cheyenne and I are part of that youth team at Masjid Maryam. And whoever wants to get active can easily email us at youtheducation@maryammasjid.org. And it's super easy and quick, I guess, to get your ideas across to people that can help you make that dream achievable. And the cool thing about it is that your emails don't just get lost in some like huge cloud and you never hear back. It goes directly to a specific few amount of people, and they're able to read your thoughts, reply to you, have conversation, and whatever idea you want. If you're new and you want to get involved, if you're active and you have a new idea, or even if it's been a while for you and you're like, hey, like maybe I can start something up again and sort of revive your presence at the masjid, it's always there for you guys or for anyone really. And like you guys said, I definitely agree with having programs that are more attractive to the youth. And that way they can have fun, but they can also learn, and they can also feel like they're finding some sort of family or some sort of crowd that they belong in and that they feel comfortable with, for sure. So following that question, why do you think it's important for us, for youth, or for anyone really, to feel welcomed in our masajid? And what does that mean to you specifically?
I can go.
Okay. No, you got it.
Okay. Well, feeling welcome, it builds a sense of bond and unity. So, like how I was saying earlier, when sometimes I don't feel welcome, maybe I'm throwing off the balance of what's going on, because I like to believe in the law of attraction. What you put out is what you're gonna get. So, like how Sean was saying, if you're coming in with a frown, you're probably gonna get some negativity going. But if you come in with a smile, then, and that goes for anyone really, like the person that's being welcomed or the person that's welcoming. Like, I don't know if that's the right phrase to use, but yeah. So it's kind of just, again, building each other up and creating a bond and putting that unity in the community. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then just to add on to Aliyan, I feel like, like I think like also like kind of, taking away from the previous question, I feel like, for people to be welcome, you kind of have to like, I feel like we just made this thing that you have to come to the masjid like X amount of time to like feel welcomed, or like, to feel like, oh, this guy, we know this guy, like you have to kind of like, not to be frank, but kind of get your name out there, and sometimes we don't want to do that. We just kind of want to come to the masjid and just do our own thing and just hang out. But I think to me, like, welcoming is kind of just like, like you kind of, because I feel like, a masjid should kind of, where you come in and you grow your Islamic perspective and your Islamic beliefs and your ethics about Islam, and kind of grow religiously and grow like humanly as well. But I feel like if people aren't welcome, then like they just kind of stray off the path and just kind of, because also like high school and like, I guess the norms nowadays kind of stray people off the right path.
I also wanted to add another thing, that feeling welcomed in the masjid is super important, also because like us as youth, if we're not welcomed, if you don't feel welcomed in the masjid, then we're not going to the masjid. You know what I mean? And it's like, then that sets off like the cycle of like, if you don't feel welcome, we're not going. If we're not going, we're not learning. And if we're not learning, then the Muslim community as a whole loses their next generation of leaders. And as bad as that is for us, to not be learning and stuff, it's even worse for the generation after us, because then they lose their all these amazing resources that we have right now. They start to lose that. So I feel like that, and then it just becomes, from like that, it just becomes worse and stuff. So yeah, I feel like that is why it's really important to feel welcome.
I definitely agree there. Because another thing is, like, psychologically, if someone's seeing something as a chore, like, oh, like I have to go to the masjid because my parents are dragging me, two things happen. One, there's no passion built, so they're not really encouraged to go. They're not really trying to go and actively be listening. And two, the second their parents stop, babying them and bringing them to the masjid, they're gone. So I think it's really important to feel like welcome people in. And I mean, I'm gonna compare it back to like, any job or any workplace or any club or anything like that. If you don't have a voice, and if you're not enjoying your thing, and you don't feel like you have a place there, you don't feel like no one's inviting you in, welcoming you in, then you're gonna look elsewhere. And when it's something like a masjid, some people they just don't. So it's like, it's not just like, oh, kids are gonna be at the masjid, regardless. Because they won't be. We actually have to have something that not only welcomes them in, but keeps them, that has something to do with them. Like are any of our programs beneficial to college kids? Because if not, they probably won't be there. They might just pray and leave, and then eventually they're not even praying and leaving. They're not coming at all. So it's like, not only do we have to be welcoming, because in this day and age, yeah, it's straight up like, if people aren't choosing Maryam, masjid or choosing a masjid in general, they're, who knows what they're doing. We live in the U.S. There's lots of crazy influences. There's lots of what the norms for society are now are very far from the Islamic youth that we could or should be.
Okay, so I guess just to go into a little more depth, why do you guys feel personally? So if you guys have any personal stories or personal, I guess, things that have happened to you, and you feel comfortable sharing, why do you think, or what does it mean to you to be welcomed in the masajid? Like, why is that important, and how does that resonate with you personally?
I just want to start off by saying that I wasn't very involved in Mariam Masjid specifically, and it was just the weekend volunteering here and there when I have time. But I think it's very important to be welcome, because the way I joined this big family was because it was just totally by chance. I just happened to be there at the right time, and then and the imam, of course, and everybody else, all the teachers, everyone who was there was very, very comforting and welcoming, and let me learn on my own as well, and taught me where they could. So I feel like it resonates with me personally, because this is how I became part of the masjid. And if I felt like I was kind of like an outsider, then I don't know if I would still be there or not. But because of all the warm smiles that I received, that's one of the reasons why I'm such a huge part, or not huge, but that's why I'm a part of it.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of feel her on that too. Like, even though I've been at Mariam majority of the time, it was people like Imam Tokir. No matter how much he would kick me out of Quran class, literally the following week he'd be like, "All right, come back." Bassel's laughing because he went through the same thing. It was things like that that would, no matter how upset or he would annoy me, he'd always kind of, I'm not gonna say nurture me with patience. That's who taught me that kind of patience. He's taught me these life lessons just to be kind of better. And it was funny. It was when he left is when I stopped kind of acting up at the masjid, when I kind of fell into line or started acting a little more proper. So it was really him that kind of made me come more. So I'm not gonna say our uncles and aunties need to step up and be like him. I'm not saying that. It's just everyone we all got to work with patience on each other. You know what I'm talking about? Like, yeah.
Yeah, and then like just to add on to what Aliyan was saying, how like also me, like I was majority of my time, or like majority of my life I've been at Mariam. So I guess like even before like youth halakas were like even a thing back then, we were just like, me and Aliyan were just, or like in general, people would just come to masjid and pray and stuff like that. But obviously a person came and he kind of reached out to us, and I think Aliyan could vouch for this too. Like he just, like, someone just kind of came in and just got out of his comfort zone and just said, hey, you know what, we should do youth halakas, we should do this kind of thing to bring the youth together. So it kind of like made us feel kind of special. So I think if like you make a youth feel special, then they could honestly start coming to the masjid more, and yeah.
Yeah, and for me personally, like, I come to the masjid because I find peace. It's kind of like a relief. It's an outlet, and I've gone to Mariam Masjid majority of my life, but I have gone to other masjids too in the past, and I get a different vibe when I walk in. So, I mean, I think it's just really important to be welcomed, because you don't know what someone's going through at what point in their life, and if they're coming to find that peace, to find that relief, you definitely want to be welcoming. You want them to come back, and you want them to kind of get that guidance that they're trying to get. It's kind of my personal 2 cents on that.
And not everyone will like kind of experience what the kind of welcoming me and Bassel, alhamdulillah, that we did experience from someone like him. Because like how Hena was saying, not every, you don't know what's going on in people's lives. Everyone's going through their own thing. So again, it ties back into not judging the book by its cover. Like, just because someone may not look like they're having a good day, that's the energy you're giving off. But then on the other hand, you still gotta I feel like it's a duty as a human to reach out and be like, hey, is everything good? Are you straight? Things like that. And then that builds on to feeling welcomed in such a warming society. It's a family.
Yeah. And then no, like obviously you won't feel welcomed on like, like you got to start off small, like change one person, and then like it'll start a chain effect. That one person will affect another person, and so on. And then alhamdulillah, inshallah, the whole like youth can be united.
Yeah, and I think it's so important that you mentioned that, Aliyan, just even checking up on people, because that's what's going to develop those genuine relationships, right? So I think that's really important. Sometimes we just come in to the masjid, do our thing, and leave, but just checking up on your people and your brothers and your sisters, I think that's really important.
Yeah, and that actually leads beautifully into the next question. How can you better support each other? How can you better actually be there for your friends? If you don't see anyone as often as you did anymore, how can you glue that bond back together? How can you support? I mean, like that's a huge aspect of everyone's life, really. Whenever you want to do something with these initiatives that you guys were talking about earlier, you need some sort of support. And many of you guys mentioned support from your friends means more and resonates more and makes you feel, I guess, like more powerful. Like you can actually accomplish what you want when you have that support from your friends. How can youth better support each other? How can they better be there for each other, even if they're not friends? If someone has this dope idea, how can someone that doesn't know them say, hey, I want to join you and do exactly what you're doing and make it a great thing? So whoever wants to take that question away can start.
So this, I might get a little more mature in this, just because I really thought about this question. So in high school, I've seen people that would indulge themselves in a little more haram things, not as just not good things in general. And back when, I'm not gonna say I'm mature now, but when I was more immature, I used to look at that and judge it, be like, because I'm going to the masjid all the time, so not necessarily I'm putting myself on a pedestal, but more like, how come if I'm like this, why can't they just kind of do the same thing? It was very immature and ignorant of me to be like that. But what I come to realize was from what actually Imam Ahmad told me was, and correct me if I'm wrong if you've heard him say this, but the man that is like a drunk, right? Like he could be on the floor drunk. In his heart, he could still be the wali of Allah, like the friend of Allah, or actually I don't know if that's the right word, but it was somewhere along the lines of that. But in that state of time, he's not like that. But in the future, you don't know what the future holds for him. So my point is, like, just again, the toxic environment of judging each other is just so gross because it diminishes a community. It will destroy a community if we just sit there and point the little fingers at each other. So that's the sense of support of just the opposite of no matter what someone's going through, you got to be there for them. Even if they're far from deen, it's your responsibility of, if you're so-called on deen, you got to be there for them because that's what your deen teaches you.
Yeah, and just as Aliyan said, we have to create like a safe space for everyone to talk. So if everyone has been engaged in any sort of activities that they're not very proud of, they should be able to speak up without, the fear of being judged or the fear of, oh, they're not going to accept me and stuff like that. So we need to create a safe space for communication, talking, encouraging to ask questions and stuff like that.
I mean, to go along with that, actually, I think there's a big part of, the masjid has resources and it has a lot going on to where it's not just we're just calling people into the masjid for the sake of, fill the masjid. That's not the point. Like a lot of times, I would have friends in high school or people in like the MSA or like just people around. They would come up and be like, hey, I have a question. I know you're at the masjid a lot, and they just asked me this like extremely like tough question. And instead of trying to answer anything myself, to be honest, because I didn't want to say anything wrong or say anything over my head, I'd be like, hey, look, like we have this great imam at Maryam Masjid. He kind of studies this. His name is Imam Ahmad. This is what he does for a living. So don't ask me. But not in a rude way at all. But like, sometimes guiding people to the masjid for their own sake is literally like, hey, go have a conversation with Imam. Like, alhamdulillah, I don't know if we can say this about every masjid, but Maryam Masjid's had, Imam Tawqir, Imam Ahmad, like we just, balling in imams, but like they're very approachable. So, if you ever have like friends you go to talk to, sometimes it's a good idea to like lead them to someone who knows more, who can help more. And I know times like, like sometimes you gotta recommend your friend to like, someone who specializes in these things, right? So the masjids literally have resources that can help people better than they realize, right? Like that piece that Sister Hena was talking about, I know exactly what she means. There's a piece inside the masjid that some people don't ever really get to experience because they never give it the chance. There is your craziest, Islamic Muslim questions about, whatever it may be, jinns, zabiha, like what happens if I do this and I do that? The craziest questions, it's actually pretty crazy how much the imams study exactly those crazy questions. They're able to answer those. I've had people who literally who weren't Muslim and who are curious about, maybe potentially converting, or hey, how come Muslims are painted like this on the news? Why does Fox think y'all are, explosive? And it's like, instead of trying to answer it myself, because you can give it a shot, but I'd be like, hey, look, go talk to the imam at our masjid. He will give you all the information you need and more. So a lot of times, there is resources, just refer people to it. That's a great way of supporting them. Maybe even walk in with them. If someone hasn't been to Maryam, or, it's a non-Muslim person and they have never been inside of a masjid, kind of come in with them as their friend and like guide them the whole way, literally.
Yeah, and with that support, there becomes connections, there becomes those bonds of authenticity that we spoke about and that we're really trying to emphasize, because without that authenticity, there is no respect, there is no support, and there's no like desire, there's no want, there's no real desire to want to support your friends, to want to see your friends, check up on them. Like we mentioned earlier, resources are awesome, they're everywhere, but obviously choose your resources wisely. Shayan said it greatly when the masjid definitely is overflowing, alhamdulillah, with resources for everyone and anyone. So it's really cool that we have that. And I think a personal goal that everyone can have for themselves is, think to yourself, am I supporting my friends? Am I supporting people around me? Do I support myself? Because that's also a huge thing. Making sure that you support your own goals, your own dreams, because that's what can lead you to becoming empowered and becoming a youth that is empowered and can inspire many others around you, whether you know it or not. So I will go on to the next question if no one has anything else they want to add. All right, awesome.
I kind of want to add something on there. Just being kind of like an older youth, I feel like it is a responsibility of people even my age. We're out of college. We know kind of what the things or what the issues or the struggles you're dealing with in high school, in college. You want to get that internship, you want to get that first job, and I think it is our responsibility, and it's something even I personally can do a better job with. And you guys, the younger ones, y'all will go into college and you'll realize that people pay money to be a part of a community. They'll join these fraternities and sororities, and we, mashallah, have this community here. So it's so important to lay out those resources. And it's like you guys don't have to join that. We have that here. And yeah, so people have to like pay money to find a sense of community, but mashallah, we have that here at Maryam Masjid.
Yeah, so amazing point, actually, because I'm also in college, and you find all different kinds of people in college, and sometimes that's like the most tender, critical time in your life where you're like, I have all these paths I can take, like where do I go? So definitely, that's a really good point. So I will move on to the next question. What do you guys, or what are tangible goals that we can expect through youth empowerment? So what are things that can come to life through youth empowerment?
Well, one of the goals that I really hope to see is to create this platform for the next generation leaders, because we're youth today, but inshallah tomorrow we're going to be the ones leading. So I want to have this platform where we can connect and learn and grow together, and then inshallah the goal after that is to then for these next generation leaders to then, engage generation after us so that we can pass on this passion and this knowledge that we have learned and stuff like that.
So yeah, like the basically who are the people who are adults right now, the youth are kind of a reflection of them, because that's the thing with like people like kids and youth. And I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way we learn is we see what, sorry, monkey see, monkey do. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the way we learn, is through what we see these are the adults doing. So if all we see is bad, 90% of the time, all we're gonna do is bad, which that could be wrong in some aspect. But like that's kind of what I'm getting at is for our younger generation that's gonna come after us youth, we got to also pave a road for them so they're straight when they come through, and then they do the same and they do the same, and that's kind of how we keep the dean going from generation to generation and not fall off.
And I think like another goal or like a tangible goal is like, for example, like right now we're doing a youth halakha. So I think like, if we keep on doing these like activities or, these youth programs, like I know like for different ages, like I know there's they're doing toddler time, or like, even for like college students, because I think at least in my perspective, I feel like the more you get older, the more you want to learn about Islam and actually like do the actual things like hadiths, Quran, or like stuff like that. And then like kids just want to have fun and like at the masjid, or at like have fun with Islam. So I think if we just kind of like have that as our like goals, or just have that frequently doing what we're doing, we could change the youth in itself.
So one thing I always say, it's actually my favorite saying of all time because I think it fits everything so well. And it's like, you're only making progress if you're pushing the pin further, right? So simply, like, what are some tangible things we could achieve with the youth being empowered? It's like Sister Hena was just saying, like, reaching out and having like a community where we're actually helping each other out, not just Islamically, like, oh, don't wear shorts in the masjid, or hey, you're doing this wrong or that wrong. It's literally like, hey, I know you just got out of college. Let's get you an internship. Let's get you a job, right? Because like, I mean, this might go right over the high schoolers' heads, but the only thing better than LinkedIn is like real life LinkedIn, when you literally know them and they literally are someone in the same field as you but older, because they can give you like real life advice. They can give you real things. And like she was saying earlier, there's literally people who charge for mentors and things like that. Like I remember I was invited to enter this mentorship program. I was so stoked. I was like, yo, this is going to be so good for me. And they're like, yeah, so there's like a $500. I was like, what? I'm paying for advice. That's insane. Like, but hopefully, inshallah, when I'm a mentor, when I get somewhere, I can definitely do that for the younger generation. So some tangible goods that come, some tangible goals that come up to me in my head is like building a close-knit group where we know, like, if someone can't go up to the imam and be like, hey, I have issues finding a job in this field, he's not gonna he's not gonna drop you some Islamic bars. Instead he's gonna point you to someone who's in your same field, right? So that's one idea. And then actually this is one that I'm personally trying to achieve because it sounds so cool to me. I know in New Jersey and California, there's masjids in the same area. Like, let's give the example of like ISGH masjids, right? They have a basketball league. So each masjid has 1 to 2 teams, and they have full out jerseys, full out refs, and they go to each other like home court advantage, away games, that whole thing. And they play legit like a season. And that's so dope to think about because, like I've played in a league for like 2 games once and I wasn't really feeling it. I didn't know anyone. I had a few friends. That was about it. But like thinking about like a basketball league inside of a masjid, or like, right outside in the basketball court. And then like right after you wash up, you go pray, right after, like, subhanAllah, that would be so dope to me. And it's one thing I'm trying to get going because like, I'm not that old yet. And you guys got to see, I'll be, but no, there's definitely a lot of tangible goals we could achieve because, no offense to any of our elders, but they might be thinking about, oh, let's better this part of this aspect of the masjid or this aspect of the masjid, but we know what the youth want. We're thinking, charity tournaments, video game tournaments, a basketball league. We're thinking these things. We could do a business fair, like a career fair type thing. We could do like a mentorship program because we know what the youth need because we're the ones that need it. Like we know exactly what we should achieve. And like you guys have been saying, I think if we kind of get the ball rolling, then, inshallah, the generation after us can make it actually achievable. If it's too big of a goal, then we can at least get started instead of just leaving it for later. But yeah.
And the cool thing is like a lot of these tangible goals or a lot of these initiatives aren't really like, they're not, I guess they can like transcend gender. So like we can have a basketball league for dudes and for girls, and we can have internship opportunities for people in college, people in high school. It definitely applies to all ages and all races, all ethnicities, all genders, because I mean, that's what facilitates that welcoming environment, and that's what helps grow and empower the youth from really anywhere and everywhere. And it teaches us as youth how to grow together rather than growing apart. And that's a huge thing. I mean, like you'll just say, oh, we grew apart or we drifted away or something along those lines. But there's something that can always pull people back and pull people together and create those authentic relationships that we really want to highlight, because I guess I'm speaking for myself, but I hope that the panel can all agree that authenticity and those relationships is really what can push us to grow together, but also to grow and be better people in the long run, but also tomorrow. So
I kind of wanted to add something on there, and I'm very passionate about like the whole career situation, and I think we need to talk more online, more offline on that. But I would love to get like an internship panel or panel, because that was something I think I would have loved to see in Maryam Mazid. And someone who's graduated and now has a job, I love it when people come and ask me questions or come to me for advice. Like, so don't be afraid. Even like you guys on the panel, I know a couple of y'all are in engineering school, but come ask me questions. It excites me. So we definitely need to get those kind of opportunities out there where people can ask. And we have so many smart people in our community, our adults, the young adults, and I definitely can help get a good different amount of people out there.
And actually, I love that you said that, because so I'm an architecture student and I don't hear of a lot of people that do architecture. I hear a lot of engineers and doctors and people in business, but then it's like architecture is like not engineering, but everyone thinks it is, which is funny. But I think that would be cool. Like definitely people that you can look at and say like, I can be there in 5 years. I can be there in 10 years or so. Like after I graduate, I have a connection to this person that can help me later down the road or whatnot.
Exactly.
So yeah, I definitely agree with you being passionate about that, because I share that same passion for sure.
Yeah, and you can be the face of like, people who want to find more information about architecture school. Even, I mean, I feel like even me, like I mean, there's not many females out there that do engineering, even though it seems like there is now, but still it's just so hard to find that mentor, that's a female or even a Muslim, someone in your community. And 90% of internships or jobs I got, it was through someone I knew. And that's the reality of it. And, we have so many smart people in our community, and we should really get them together and get them to help our youth.
For sure.
I would personally love that a lot. I am also engineering background, and it's so hard to find someone who's doing what I'm doing, but they can relate, So yeah, that's amazing. I just wanted to say that was a great point.
Well, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll apply.
Oh my God, please.
Yeah.
So real quick, I actually had a question for Bassel. What did you want to study?
I wanted to study psychology.
And who do you know of anyone who inspired you to do that, and where you might have met him?
Yeah, so it was actually a funny story. It was actually during Itikaf, and it was my first time, and it was his first time too. And he was a psychologist, and it was really cool because during because the first time we started getting close, within the second time we did Itikaf, everyone started bombarding him with like problems and like just like things they're going on with, and he was so happy to help. He was like, you know, and alhamdulillah, so he kind of like inspired me into, you know, help other people with their issues and their problems, because honestly he helped me with mine, and you know, I'm really grateful for that.
And you bring up a really good topic of just like even mental health. You know, obviously there's a need in our community for assistance like that. And then it's great that you're doing something like psychology, and you should, you know, maybe even bring I don't know, bring a panel of therapists or something. The need's there, but obviously it's kind of taboo and people don't like to talk about that kind of stuff, but you know, something we should look into.
Okay, and so to ask the last question, and also to speaking of passion and all this like amazing little side conversation we just had, so how can we give rise to that passion that not only benefits us but benefits people around us? And why is it important to fuel it? Why is it important to fuel that passion that is communal in nature? It's not self-centered, it's not selfish. Like I said, it benefits us but also others around us. Whoever wants to start off with that, go ahead and take it away.
So actually something that I found really cool was when I was at this interfaith event on MLK Day, we went to a Jamaat Khana, and we were talking to, I guess what their AD would be, the director, and he was telling, we were asking, oh, what are all these desks in the front for? They were telling him, oh, this is where our education board person sits, or, you know, just things of that nature. And he was like, people come here, and when they're here, people can come here, ask them questions about their passion, things like that. So literally how we were saying on the last question, freely asking, things like that, like that's something that I found really cool and interesting that they were doing. And the way it kind of will on a benefit a communal basis is like how if Bassel wants to be a psychologist, a lot of Muslims deal with things like mental illness. I'm not saying the masjid is going to hire him for, you know, be the masjid's therapist, but somewhere along the lines of that sort of thing, like in a comfortable space, because you know, you're not going to, even sometimes I'm not going to feel comfortable just talking to my own friends about what's going on in my life. So maybe if there's someone at the masjid, look, one, I'm going to the masjid now. Two, I'm getting actual help. And, you know, if he wants to charge me, he can charge me. Just keep it on the low, though. Something like that.
So actually the masjid, after the whole thing with Nader, the masjid actually has been discussing with Nader and having him on like board, so that if people approach the imam or, you know, they're inside the masjid, the conversation, you know, it goes, you know, slightly not as much as a religious issue as it is, you know, a mental health issue or anything of the sorts. They can, you know, they would get him in contact with Nader. And I think there was also one other person in the same field that was also working with Maryam Masjid on that. So that is a thing, and that's just one other example of a resource that Maryam Masjid would have. So, you know, someone thinking that, oh, I have like, you know, I'm struggling with my mental health, you know, what could a masjid do for that? And I'm not just gonna tell them like, oh, just pray more, you know, necessarily. But we literally have the resources that could help out with something like that, you know. We could get you in touch with the people.
And then I think to add on, but I feel like the to like, you know, like have fruitful passion, I feel like, because, you know, like it's the sad truth, but a lot of youth are like, you know, mentally struggling and stuff like that. You know, they have problems and stuff like that. And like Shayan said, you know, Nader, and you know, we have a lot of resources that very much uses it from that. So I think like it might be tough, but I feel like to talk about the tough things that are going on in life might be one way to kind of, you know, bring the youth together and kind of get that passion. Because I know personally like a lot of my like uncles or friends, they're just like Sean said, pray more, do some dua. But sometimes, you know, that kind of, you just kind of want to talk about it and, you know, get your like voice heard and just spill the beans, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's good that you say that, even especially from like a male perspective, because males don't like to talk about that. So it's good that you kind of put that out there.
Yeah, and like I mean, I know we're like specifically talking about like mental health, and we talked about the career panel, or a career sort of help center in a sense, a little bit earlier. But definitely, like, these are things that are like we feel passionate about, and that's why we want someone there to help us like carry on our passions, because passion is something that drives you, that motivates you. It's basically it's that pivot point to what shoots you into your future. And it's important to have, because I mean, I think I would argue that a good percentage of the youth today tend to be disinterested in a lot of things, or like don't feel like they can be really passionate about something. But I guess another personal goal for youth is that they could definitely look inside of themselves and like, what motivates you? What are you passionate about? What are your friends passionate about? Your cousins, whatever, your mom, what is she passionate about? And definitely strive to follow your passion. I mean, a lot of people say follow your heart, and your heart is where you find things that you're passionate about, I would think. So I think it's definitely important, because that's what leads you to forming yourself and finding yourself. But also, passion should be beneficial to everyone. It should be egalitarian, communal. It's not something that like, I'm passionate about chocolate ice cream and I don't want anyone to ever eat chocolate ice cream ever. I only want it for myself. Like it's really simple. Or like, I guess like I'm really passionate about having the highest grades in my class, so I'm not going to help anyone else with this problem, and I don't want anyone else to know the answer to how you find mass or volume or whatever. I'm taking a physics class, so everything I'm thinking about is physics related. But definitely, I mean, it should be something like, although I want to succeed, I also want to see people around me succeed, my friends succeed, and that's that support, that's that genuineness that is needed.
I definitely agree. I mean, I think a lot of times it's also just having a voice, right? So if I have something I'm really passionate about, but maybe I'm not being able to understand how to bring it into the Islamic environment, literally into the masjid, right? But if at least if I have a voice enough to speak about my passion and speak about, you know, my talent, my hobby, whatever, you know, someone else may be able to kind of find the link between that and the masjid. I gave this example earlier in a different conversation, but you know, Islamic Arts Day was a huge one, because a lot of times art is a hobby that is put away in a lot of Islamic households, right? It's looked at like, oh, you know, like you can't draw this, you can't do this, it's a waste, you know, go study, go do something else. You know, you can have any better hobby, you know, like a lot of these things. But like, you know, someone, I forget who put that together necessarily. I think it was a team, but you know, whoever had that idea of, you know, how can my art, how can my passion impact the masjid, and we ended up doing an Islamic Arts Day. I think we've done it a few times, and I just remember the first one. It was literally almost like a mini carnival, simply because someone wanted to do art inside the masjid. So you'd be surprised. I mean, this is another funny one, but some auntie who's really, really into cooking, and she had a cooking competition at the carnival, and you know that was huge. It raised a lot of donation, and it was pretty interesting to see, because it changes up things. You know, it doesn't keep it the same old carnival. You know, we have arts going on in one side, and it's not just finger paint, it's real art. You know, it's real like stuff going on, and you know there's a cooking competition on one end. You know, like you never know. But if you just hold it within you and you don't bother speaking about it, you don't bother mentioning it, and you don't have a platform or voice to even put it out there, then of course it's going to go under the covers, and no one's really going to be passionate. Because, you know, when you say passionate about the masjid, usually you have to find it within yourself, one specific part of the masjid that you hone in on, right? Like one of the reasons I'm passionate about the masjid is because I know that I've had moments, or I've had issues or problems that the masjid literally helped me with, and I know that the problems other people have as well. You know, they need a peaceful place, they need a quiet place, they need advice. You know, they need a place to feel like good inside, right? So, and then a place to play basketball. You know, anytime my friends are like, "Yo, where are you trying to hoop?" Mariam Masjid, boom, done. Start 504, start target, whatever. You know, and like so. Finding passion is, first of all, speaking about it, putting it out there, right? And then the second is just see what the masjid has done for you. And I promise you, not a single person on this earth is the only one with a specific problem. Someone somewhere shares it with you. So, you know, whatever the masjid has helped you with, you know, if you help the masjid help other people with the same thing, like, dude, you're going to be extremely passionate about it.
Definitely agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. So it's been a little over an hour. So I don't know if do any of you guys have any last words before I wrap this up? Inshallah. Any last comments, concerns, hopes, dreams? Okay, awesome. So definitely, I mean, I hope that everything that we've said resonated with at least one person that's watching, or even amongst ourselves. Maybe you hear something from someone of this, from a panelist heard from another panelist, and you're like, you know what, that's amazing. And I agree with that. But definitely, I think the overall point that we're really trying to drive home is that authenticity is the first step to everything. It is the first step to creating those bonds, creating that support, gaining that respect amongst youth, allowing youth to feel empowered, allowing those ideas to grow, those initiatives that are genuine and that are beneficial, that are egalitarian, that are communal, all of that stuff. It definitely has to start with that authentic relationship. It has to start with that authentic bond, and real care, real support for one another. That maybe is missing in society today, and especially people that come straight out of high school that are going into college. You definitely still kind of feel that lag from high school, that high school environment that you kind of just, you feel like you need to get out of it quickly, because there was no authenticity there. So thank you guys for joining.
Also,
yeah, for sure.
real quick, I just want to add, if any of you guys are also, any of the viewers, anyone like that, if you guys want to get involved, certainly feel free to reach out. This is, this was the whole conversation, was feel free to jump in, don't sit back and just watch. If you guys have questions on how to do it in your own masjids, if you guys aren't from Mariam, still feel free to reach out. And for anyone who on the Conversation of Passions, we are doing an open mic night sometime soon. So, if you have any, you want to show off your poetry, spoken word, nasheed, you have anything to say, just jump in. We are doing that sometime soon. So, again, feel free to reach out. We're all ears. We're all ready. We're all here for you.
Definitely.
But yeah, thank you guys for joining. Anyone else want to add anything, or should we go ahead and wrap up?
Any closing words, remarks?
Cool sayings.
All right. Any inspiring quotes?
Push the pin further.
Don't carry each other
I
down.
guess I want to just say, be the change that you want to see. So if there are like things that you want to see different, get involved and be part of that change. I guess that's kind of something that I want to leave off with.
Don't tear each other down, build each other up. I like that. I like that.
All right, awesome then. So Jazakallah khair to all of you guys. May Allah reward you guys immensely. Your thoughts are always appreciated. And like Shayan said, if anyone that was watching is interested, feel free to reach out to us through Facebook, email us, check out the Masjid Maryam website. Again, huge thank you to all of you guys. And Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Welcome.